For everyone who's joining now, my name is Sarah Hess from ESCWA, the Economic and Social Commission for Western Asia. We're going to get started. I wanted to remind everyone that you can click for interpretation at the bottom of the Zoom link so that you can follow in either Arabic or English, whatever you feel more comfortable with. And our panelists will be presenting in both languages, actually. Hossein, would you like to go ahead and start with the opening remarks?
Yeah, sure, but just let me open my camera. Okay, hello everyone. I'll speak in Arabic. للتغيير سأتحدث بالعربية. السيدات والسادة الزملاء الأعزاء، يسعدني أن أرحب بكم اليوم في هذه الندوة الافتراضية التي تنظمها شبكة المياه الحضرية والقدرة على التكيف مع المناخ في المنطقة العربية. يمثل اجتماعنا اليوم فرصة مهمة لتسليط الضوء على العلاقات الحيوية بين الزراعة، الموارد المائية والمرونة المناخية، خاصة في ظل التحديات المتزايدة التي يفرضها التغير المناخي في منطقتنا، والتحديات والأزمة المناخية التي يعيشها العالم. تعد الزراعة من القطاعات الرئيسية المهمة في انبعاثات غازات دفيئة عالميا، وفقا لأحدث تقارير الهيئة الحكومية المعنية بالتغير المناخي الدولية المعنية بالتغير المناخي RWSCC، فإن قطاع الزراعة وتغير استخدامات الأراضي ساهم بحوالي 13% إلى 21% من إجمالي الانبعاثات لغازات الاحتباس الحراري خلال الفترة بين 2010 ل 2019. ومع ذلك فإن الزراعة ليست فقط مساهما في التغير المناخي، بل أيضا هي من أكثر القطاعات تأثرا به، ويؤدي تغير في الأنماط الهطول وزيادة تواتر الظواهر الجوية القياسية وتغير مواسم الزراعة إلى تحديات كبيرة في الأمن الغذائي وسبل عيش المجتمعات، خاصة في الريف والمدن بشكل تابع لذلك بكل تأكيد. في المنطقة العربية تتفاقم هذه التحديات بسبب النمو السكاني الكبير والسريع وشح الموارد المائية كما نعرف، والاعتماد الكبير على الزراعات المعتمدة على الأمطار. تشير التقارير إلى أن معظم الأراضي الزراعية في منطقتنا في الدول العربية تعتمد على الأمطار، مما يجعلها عرضة أكيد للتغيرات المناخية والجفاف المتزايد. بالإضافة لذلك فإن حوالي 45% من الأراضي الزراعية في المنطقة يعاني من مشاكل مثل الملوحة ونقص المغذيات في التربة والتعرية بفضل الرياح والمياه، مما يؤثر سلبا على الإنتاجية الزراعية. والحلول التي سنقدمها اليوم ممكن تعالج هذه المشاكل أكيد. استجابة لهذه التحديات يتبنى القطاع الزراعي في المنطقة العربية استراتيجيات تكيف متنوعة لتعزيز المرونة، ومنها تنويع المحاصيل وأنواع الماشية المستخدمة التي تتكامل معها، استخدام تقنيات الزراعة الدقيقة والتكنولوجيا الحديثة، تحسين نظم إدارة المياه، وأخيرا وليس آخرا اعتماد ممارسات الزراعة المستدامة، والتي جزء لا يتجزأ منها اللي هي الزراعة الدائمة والمستدامة التي سنستعرض ممارساتها اليوم. تهدف الإجراءات إلى الحد من آثار التغير المناخي وتعزيز استدامة الموارد الطبيعية، ولكن أريد أن أنوه أن الاهتمام في الأرض ليس بجديد على منطقتنا، فقيمة الأرض تتجاوز بعدها المادي لتشكل جزءا لا يتجزأ من هويتنا وماهيتنا الثقافية والحضارية. فبالتالي نتطلع اليوم إلى مناقشات مثمرة حول هذه المواضيع واستكشاف حلول مبتكرة لتعزيز مرونة نظمنا الزراعية والمائية. بشجعكم جميعا على المشاركة وتبادل الخبرات والمعرفة، لأنه هذا هو هدفنا جميعا، وأتمنى للجميع التوفيق، ونشكركم لوجودكم معنا، ونتمنى ندوة مثمرة وناجحة. Back to you, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Hossein. Yes, to your point, agriculture and water scarcity are two very interlinked challenges in the region, and it's my great privilege to be able to welcome our speakers today, who are experts in agriculture, permaculture, and urban farming, and basically working on the water, energy, food nexus in general. So the way our session is going to run, first we'll have a presentation from Darren Hay, who's the project coordinator for the Permaculture Research Institute, working in Jordan on a permaculture site there that's associated with the Adaptation Fund project, Resilient Water Solutions Against Climate Change. This is an Adaptation Fund project that we're working on in both Jordan and Lebanon. And Darren is in charge of the permaculture site in Jordan. He'll be followed by Ihab Joma, who works for the Lebanese Agriculture Research Institute and runs the permaculture site here in Lebanon. And then it's our privilege to welcome both Khalid Al-Shaka and Rasan Najer. Khalid runs the Sama Gaza organization, is a co-founder that works in Jarash camp in Jordan, and Rasan Najer is based in Hebron in the West Bank. So we're hoping to have a very dynamic session with examples from the field and the challenges that exist there. We know that 80% of freshwater withdrawals in 2020 were used in the agriculture sector, so tackling problems in this sector and creating innovations for more efficient water use is really key to improving the overall availability of water. And in the region, there are very specific challenges, some of which Hussein touched on. In addition to the extreme impacts of climate change on the Arab region, we also have the compound crises of conflict, of displacement, which are definitely topics that will be covered in our presentations today. So first, I would like to welcome Darren. I had the privilege of visiting his permaculture site last week, actually, in Jordan, and it was great to see it growing and thriving, and the progress that's been made there over the 3 years, or almost 4 years now, of the Adaptation Fund project. So Darren, would you like to go ahead and get started? We will, if Melissa can stop sharing the screen on her side, then I think you can go ahead and start sharing on yours.
Okay, thanks, Sarah, for that introduction. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we see it.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here to be able to present this to everyone. My name is Darren. What I'm going to be introducing you to is the workbook, the Community Introduction to Permaculture workbook that we produced. It was one of our deliverables for the Resilient Water Solutions Against Climate Change project that PRI had to do. We are delivering into the community a number of community trainings, beginning with theoretical workshops, and that was delivered to 128 community vulnerable participants, refugees from the surrounding area of Mafraq, Irbid, and Jerash, mostly women. And so we produced this workbook as part of their theoretical training. It was originally produced in Arabic, and if you can see the screen, I'll just scroll through it quickly. So it was done quite well on a proper publishing program, and set out including images and graphics. And so it's about 49 pages cover to cover. And because I can't read Arabic, I will actually move to the English version. And so we did, even though, the target audience was an Arabic speaking audience, so the principal workbook was produced in Arabic. However, we have translated it English so it can also be shared onto the UN-ESCWA site, and for anyone else who happens to want it in that format. The community workshop was presented in April last year, so 20th of April to the 24th of April. And it involved introducing women and a few men from the surrounding refugee camps or refugee cities, villages, to the concept of permaculture. And so it's pretty simple in the sense that it's divided into 3 principal areas. One is, what is permaculture itself. The other is permaculture, you know, how to use permaculture in designing, and then more specifically, how to use permaculture in a dry lands setting. So 49 pages is fairly easy to read. It's important that, you know, when we introduce permaculture, that everyone understands what it is. A lot of people think that permaculture is simply just about growing food. That is very important. It is an essential utility of permaculture, that we learn how to grow food in a way that nurtures and nourishes the environment, you know, without destroying it, so that we have a legacy for future generations to be able to continue to enjoy the earth and also grow their own food. Present systems of farming generally destroy the environment and have secondary effects on the atmosphere and waterways and the oceans. And so permaculture is a way of, it's a design science principally that utilizes the different patterns that nature expresses itself on the landscape and in the environment and in nature, so that energy is distributed equitably amongst all the life forms and to allow the continuance of all those species. So permaculture seeks to emulate the design or patterns which nature follows. And in doing that, we, you know, our agriculture then becomes regenerative, so that we rebuild the soil and we nurture the biosphere, so that our food production is of high quality and can continue generation to generation without destroying the soil and appropriate or subsequent systems. So permaculture starts with 3 ethics. They are caring for the earth, caring for people, and that all surplus which is produced isn't hoarded for the benefit of a select few, but that it is shared out over throughout the community, because the resources of the earth are the commonwealth of all people, and it should be treated as such. As part of the first chapter, you know, the definition and the ethics, we also have the principles. So the principles are the foundation really upon which the design science follows. Bill Mollison being one of the principal founder of permaculture, although he did also work with another gentleman, David Holmgren. Bill Mollison has his own permaculture designers manual, which most permaculture design certificate courses are designed upon, with a welcome addition by David Holmgren. So Mollison's 5 principles are covered in the manual. They're very important, such as working with nature, not against it, recognizing that the problem is the solution. So quite often we set on attacking a problem and seeking to destroy it, such as pest attack on crops. We seek to destroy the pest, and as a result, we often damage the crops or we damage the soil with pesticides, and those pesticides ultimately end up in the food supply and in the human frame itself. So rather than trying to destroy a problem with force, we recognize that within the problem itself there is a message, and if we can decipher that message, then we can work constructively with nature to counter the problem. And so, for instance, pests are a sign that there is not enough nutrition in the soil, or that nutrition is not being translated into plants. Weeds are a sign that there is a problem with soil fertility, and these types of things can be addressed, and the problems disappear once they have been addressed. Making the smallest intervention for the greatest benefit, because this is ultimately what economy is about. And in managing the energy inputs of nature, nature uses economy in managing its energy distribution. The theoretical return of any system is unlimited based on the knowledge or imagination of the user, the one who engages with nature. The more we can expand our mind and imagination in working with these principles, we can produce anything we need. Every living being has a role. The earth is not just here for humans alone. And if we can remember this principle, then we shall all go forward in happiness and harmony. Also, Holmgren's 12 principles are included. For brevity, I won't go through them all here. We compare permaculture with industrial Western agricultural systems, looking at different models, the results of using permaculture on different landscapes. And then we go into permaculture systems design. So how is permaculture used? Different elements of permaculture design, so multiplicity, diversity, recycling, how to use resources, what type of resources there are, the yield or return from those resources, creating order from chaos, utilizing chaos, diversity and stability, how to overlay different systems and examples of how a natural forest system is created, and then how we can mimic that system to produce food growing abundance. Design methods and steps in the design process so that we can create a sustainable ecosystem and sustainable farming, how they all come together. And the different zones of design, how a permaculture design comes together so that these systems can be integrated in a way which economizes the expenditure of resources. Chapter 3 goes in specifically in how to do permaculture in dry areas. And so these provide solutions to the different soil types and soil sensitivities in drylands areas, and how those soils can be protected, and how we can maximize water conservation and preserve planted systems into a drylands environment, which obviously has water scarcity as one of its main problems. Different techniques that can be used to harvest water and conserve water in a drylands environment or setting, so that we can rebuild soil and save moisture and ultimately grow high quality food. Different techniques there. So that's pretty much the guide. There were some challenges translating it into English and making sure that these graphics all were presented in English, because they were put together originally in Arabic. So that was a challenge. I'd just like to thank Yaman and Dima from Tayoun Research Studio, who helped us put that together, and Discover Permaculture, who a lot of those graphics were originally pulled and then they were created or put together in a composite format into Arabic initially. But I'd like to thank Discover Permaculture for providing many of those too. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Darren, for that overview of permaculture and how we can use the student handbooks, both in English and in Arabic. And our communications consultant, Melissa, put the link in the chat to those resources. So any of the attendees are welcome to access those for free and take advantage of the knowledge that Darren has put together. We have time for one question for Darren before we move on to the permaculture component in Lebanon. I don't know if there were any participants who'd like to ask a question. If not, I have one question for Darren. And we'll also have time for more Q&A at the end too. So if you want time for the thoughts to marinate a bit and come back, we can also do that. My question for you, Darren, is you were highlighting how One of the principles of permaculture, several of the principles are working with nature, not against it, and that the problem is the solution. So specifically with respect to water, where we encounter a situation of water scarcity, how can we transform that problem into a solution? I know you mentioned water harvesting, water conservation techniques. So if you could give us a little bit more information on that, specifically in the context of your work in Jordan, that would be great.
Yes, so in that sense, you want to be looking at the ways in which we can minimize water usage and become more efficient with it. And so it brings our attention to all the areas and where we waste water and all the opportunities that we squander in capturing that resource and sinking it back into the land. And so in many instances in agriculture, water is delivered to places where it's not needed. And as a result of that, it goes down drains, it falls on hard surface areas and runs off, and it goes to different places where it's not needed. So learning or using techniques and using equipment which delivers water more specifically to where it is needed in the root zone is one of the techniques that we need to use, as well as observing how nature conserves moisture loss in a natural setting. And that would be to provide as much shade or canopy to the ground to prevent direct sun from evaporating that moisture, and not just a living shade or canopy, which has different strata or different levels from the top canopy or the king or crown canopy to the sub canopy, and then the living ground covers that will even grow on the ground. Nature also produces mulch. So all of these trees and shrubs produce a biomass that falls to the ground and provides a living mulch. And so we can emulate these principles in our cropping systems to try and provide a living canopy to the crops. And these are known as alley crops and support tree species, as well as ensuring that within our systems, we produce the biomass needed to create mulch and artificially mulch the ground, but with something which is obviously organic, so that we are adding carbon back into the soil. So there are just some of the ways that, you know, when we observe nature, when we emulate them, we can greatly reduce how much water is lost. Also, the recycling of water in grey water systems, a lot of that is lost. It's either flushed out to sea or it's put straight back into the ground, whereas we can use it once it has been purified to water our crops and water trees, and even just bring up canopy or shade. It can be put back into a composting system and allowed to ferment and break down and be neutralized in that way, and that compost then goes back into the ground. And then just looking at how we treat nature itself. So we stop denuding the landscape, you know, in the search for never-ending resources, and we start to regrow trees, which are part of the natural evapotranspiration cycle, and will then, if we do that, especially on the high landscape areas, we will eventually start to see more rain and increase the rainfall in these arid areas.
Thank you, Darren. Thank you for giving us such great concrete examples of how we can look to nature for a lot of the solutions when it comes to challenges with water scarcity in agriculture. And we'll have Darren on the line later for questions if more occur as we continue with the session. Now I'd like to welcome Ihab Joma from the Lebanese Agricultural Research Institute to discuss applications of permaculture and some of the challenges to agriculture in the context of Lebanon. Thank you so much for joining us, Ihab.
Thank you, Tara. Hello, everybody. I'm Ihab Joma. I'm speaking to you from the Bekaa Valley. I wish that the presentation, you can see it. You can see it on. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So, yes, thank you so much. So my talk will be about the resilience of permaculture, and of course, we will compare that with the challenges that is happening in Lebanon. What are the other opportunities to revert these challenges regarding the agriculture sector in Lebanon? So as Darren has provided the principles of permaculture, and I encourage you to go through the guide that he presented about the different principles of permaculture. I would like to raise the awareness about what is going on the ground, and maybe we are not seeing it in the right angle that from where we have to look at. So since we know about permaculture, we started to understand more what we are doing to nature. So I will tell you that the challenges that you already know are even more than we think are ruining and are even deteriorating nature and doing much more harm than more what we can think of. Like, for example, we hear a lot about the drought and what's going on the drought. And we know that this year we haven't had the amount of rainfall that we usually get, which is much more less than the average for this year regarding, so it's a drought year. So now what's the management that has to be accomplished or has to be done by stakeholders on the ground? It's not even known up to now, and there is not much of engagement from the managers and stakeholders, and to take the lead in such hard situations on farmers. Let's say for the drought that is frequently happening these years because of the climate change that is rolling out worldwide, you can speak of the things that the challenges that agriculture is being in now in Lebanon. Let's say we need water, so we need to go more into the groundwater. We're already using groundwater harshly in Lebanon everywhere, and you can see that the groundwater is depleting. So can we reverse this situation? Do we have to ask permaculture in order to reverse the situation? Is it possible through the permaculture principles and application of permaculture? Is it possible to reverse this, to reverse the depletion of water, to reverse the effect of what's going on in nature regarding climate change, all that? But we have to be sure that what we are doing on the ground is really harming a lot our nature. So you see here like an old channel. It's an open channel of water that used to transport surface water, but you can see on your left side there is a pipe that transports water, which is pressurized water. So now think of in old days, we used to have flush of water running through nature, and we can use it freely into our lands through our traditional irrigation types. But nowadays, it doesn't exist, and the abandoned channel, you can see it, how it is. But at the other end, we are using the plastic pipes and flushing water pressurized into it in order to be able to irrigate and grow crops. So now we have forced to change our way of using the natural resources because we have used it harshly and not in a good manner. Again, I will ask here, permaculture, is it possible for permaculture to do something here? This is your question, and this is what I advise you to read through the principles of permaculture. And of course, you know that the chemicals or agriculture of today doesn't produce without chemicals and all kinds of chemicals, from pesticides, herbicides, fertilizers, all kinds of chemicals you think of that are contaminating and polluting the soil and degrading the soil. There is no more life in the soil, so soil are considered almost dead. of course, you have the plowing machines and all these machines that goes into the fields, and all that is necessary for conventional agriculture that we use today for the sake of producing more food. But here is the question where permaculture stands off against all that. So I assure you that in permaculture, it's the way opposite. It's the opposite way of what you are saying. It's no more pesticides, no more herbicides, no more using of lots of chemicals, and there is not much plowing. There is no more plowing at all, and you are enriching the soil and making the soil more health and more holding of water, because once you are compacting the soil and degrading the structure of the soil and eliminating the carbon and the organic matter from the soil, you are not helping the soil at all, and you are losing the power of the water retention of the soil. So all that has been degraded because what we are doing with our soils. If you look to this image picture in front of you, you can see that soil, maybe if you are a little bit experienced of the soil, you can see the soil is impoverished. Impoverished by the use of chemicals, the use of plowing, cultivation of monoculture cultivation. You can see that there is not much of enrichment. It seems like poor soil. So permaculture, you won't see soil as more as you see greenest in the nature, and you can see different levels of greenest. I mean, I would say different layers, that means of canopy layers, different types of trees, shrubs, herbaceous plants all together, comes together like in nature. So you are mimicking nature in front of you. You are working with agro ecology, like something which is related to agroecology, which is permaculture, and you are building the ecology. So now here in the picture, you feel like you are killing nature, you are killing the soil, and of course, you will lose the topsoil, you will erode the topsoil. So that's big concern to be taken into consideration. We go into the protected agriculture. The name, if somebody hears about protected agriculture and doesn't know about agriculture, says, oh, it's a protected agriculture, but it's the opposite way. It's not protected at all. It's only covered by plastic sheets, but you are cultivating intensively and under these plastic sheets, and you are ruining the soil within 2-3 years. You have to sterilize the soil because it will be infested, heavily infested. You cannot grow any more crops unless you sterilize the soil, and then you will utilize lots of chemicals, fertilizers, and pesticides, and all these. So instead of killing the soil, we need to enrich and the healthiness of the soil. This is the way we somehow deviate the thinking, from what we are doing to nature today, that what we are thinking to do to nature through the permaculture. Now, of course, through urbanization, displaced persons, we are using less and less. We are heading toward more fragmentation and less availability of natural resources, from water, from land. What if about degrading the land? So if we are degrading the land, we will lose the land, the productivity, and this is not good in assuring food and in the food security. So we need to be concerned about. If we look into nature, just normal forest or shrubs or any kind of nature around us, we see like degradation everywhere, and we are not doing much about it. So we can see here erosion, that there is no more soil on rocks, and this is unhealthy. This is a kind of, we call it karstic rocks, which is limestone in this area that has in the old days used to have shrubs, but there is no more shrubs because we've cut it for wood, and we have overgrazed it. So soil has eroded, and we know the soil has to be built itself with organic matter and hold water in it. And through that, you will have more water in the underneath in the lower lands, and the upper lands will be like storage of water for you. So you will have flushes of surface water once you will protect your high mountains. And this is what about Lebanon. It's all about mountains, and mountains consist about 70% of the country, and we are not looking after these mountains. The mountains has to be the filter, the stockage of the water, but without soil, it will lose a lot of its storage capability. And of course, not only storage, but also filtering. So it's a cleaning cleaning water, not only storing water. So all this privilege, you are losing it because we are not dealing with nature as it should be. Even more are degrading, excavating, dumping. But what has to do with permaculture? We say in permaculture there is no waste. So consider you're not dumping any waste. So that's something to look off. And we are having waste disposals everywhere, and dumping and doing excavation, ruining nature, changing the whole ecology to the sake of pollution. Now, can we learn from nature? And this is what about permaculture. Permaculture is learning from nature. What I mean by learning from nature is looking to nature and look and consider what nature is doing, and consider of creating nature at your own place. That it means you are creating permaculture. Now you have to understand the whole system. So you don't only understand a tree or a shrub or a rock or soil. You have to understand the whole system, from birds, animals, everything. You have to put them all together, insects. You have to put the whole system. You have to build the whole system. Now you have to consider your food also. So we're not only looking to nature as nature, but we need to produce food. So I put this picture just to tell you this is just a resilient picture for me. This tree is really doing very well in a nature that has been degraded by human, but it's still resisting nature and resisting what's going on around it. So if we leave this on its own, it will rejuvenate, and this is what we have to learn. And we have to look for nature and learn from nature how it's doing in order to replicate it in our case. So we have done this replication through the project that we are in. Now, the resilient water solutions against climate change in Jordan and Lebanon. For this project, we have this demonstration plot in Lebanon, in Tal Amara, which is about 50 kilometers bird side from Beirut, inside after the Mount Lebanon. So inside the Bekaa Valley, and this side has the possibility to have people coming, visiting, and see what's going on in the site in order to learn. We have introduced all the principles that most of the principles of permaculture in this place in order for people to see it and try to learn. We have used also, this is what about permaculture, is as much as you can use from the resources, like even wastewater treatment plants. If you can do it and you can treat water at your base, this is great at permaculture side. You can re-put the water in the system, the energy in the system. You can use the wind energy, as you see here. You can also use the solar energy. You can use water harvesting from rooftops. And this is the picture in the bottom, that it's a lake that receives water from rooftops, and it's used later on for irrigation. You can use also kind of wicking beds, and wicking beds are types of beds that we use in permaculture that irrigates itself for at least 1 month in the dry, semi-arid climate of our area. On the left, there is a picture of spiral shape, 3D shape of spiral medicine plants. So you can grow your own, let's say, your own life in the whole permaculture. So you can, through your work, you have plants and you have to move around that all healthiness for life of a human and plant altogether. You have also, for example, a possibility of having mobile coop, chicken coops, that runs through the whole area, and you can move it from place to place instead of using herbicides. Maybe use the chickens to take off the herbs or to control herbs. Instead, you can have chicken coops like this one we have built for the site to show it's powered by solar powered automated controlled mobile coop. Also, you can see like a ditch, like it's like swale, almost like swale, but it's a flat area. We have to consider here it's a flat area, so it's not slopey area. So it's a little bit different than what you see at hilly areas. You can see that the pathways are built from natural collected from around stones, and with bridges also has been built from the nature around. So all what you can imagine that you can create nature around you, it's here you can build it in front of you. So this site is available to be visited by anybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ihab, for sharing how you're implementing permaculture solutions here in Lebanon in a completely different context from Jordan, given that it's a mountainous landscape. You have relatively more water supplies, but you still have the challenges of water scarcity and impacts of climate change and the irresponsible use of water resources in general. It looks like we have one question in the Q&A from Hassan Jafar. I think this may be directed towards you, Ihab, but Darren can chime in on this as well. Are there any rainwater collection systems underground or on land water chambers established over the country for irrigation in case of droughts?
Throughout the country, we have tried to do establishment of ground or underground, if you want to call it, water conservation or water storage in a project in the Marshin area or in Al-Qa area, also through lunar shapes. We have done like a half moon shape in the bottom side of the slope of the trees in order to catch water from rain and to build the storage or the water moisture next to the tree for the months to come. This has been done in the Ka area also. And we have done it also at the, as I said, in Marshin area. It's a little bit high in the mountains. We wanted to build in the valley, having more water. So we had to run water through the valley and catch it into small lake types in order to let the water seeps into the soil. So this is what about also could be a principle from permaculture is to hold water in the soil, as Darren has explained before, through building the soil health, building the soil organic matter, and you can do different techniques, technical elements like swales or other types of techniques in order to hold water in the soil. So, and you can maybe enrich these techniques with the new technology, like using different kinds of water holding products that you can mix it with the soil other than organic matter, also can release water once you have dry periods. Maybe Darren can maybe add on. Thank you.
Hello, yes, thank you, Ihab and Sarah. The good news is that I am seeing that at least in commercial properties around Jordan, that water storage reservoirs are being included and built underneath these buildings now. For instance, I was just up at Ajloon National University just a week ago, and they have just on one building alone about 400 cubic meters of storage in 4 separate tanks built into the to hold water underneath the university there, and that is pumped out around the grounds. That's not a huge amount of water considering how large the buildings are, but at least it's a step forward, and that is a lot more than has been held historically. Unfortunately, that type of construction is beyond the reach of the average person in their own home, and particularly when you look at people who have refugee status and are living in refugee colonies, they don't have the funds to build that type of infrastructure underneath their homes. But hopefully some type of government program in the future could help that. And just one other thing when it comes to storing water, we traditionally look, particularly in humid environments, we look at open water impoundments, which is basically building a dam wall across a valley and damming that water behind that wall. That's called an open water impoundment. So the inverse of that would be far better for a drylands environment, and that would be, say, creating a silt field behind a gabion wall. So all that silt that runs down into the valley, you dam it up behind a gabion wall, and the water then soaks down into the silt field, and the silt field can be tapped then, and water will gradually and consistently come out of that silt field. That's one way of keeping it out of the sun. However, you won't hold as much water as you would in an open water impoundment, and you'd need more of those collectively along the path of the water. But that is something which has been used to great effect and is being used in Jordan, though not greatly yet.
Thank you, Darren, and thank you, Ihab, for your great responses. I see we have a number of questions coming in on the Q&A, but I want to make sure that we have time for our 2 panelists from both the Jarath refugee camp and from the West Bank, and then we have more time for Q&A at the end. So continue to put your questions into the Q&A box, and we'll revisit those at the end of the session. But for right now, I would like to welcome Khalid Al-Shaka, who's the co-founder of Sama Gaza, and to Darren's point, maybe he can speak a bit to the water storage that's occurring within that context, which is very different from some of the other larger commercial farming operations that we're talking about in these other examples. Thank you so much, Khalid, for joining us. Are you able to share your screen okay?
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for this opportunity, Sarah.
There we go.
And for ESCWA for this opportunity. And thanks a lot also for Darren and Hussein, who kind of introduced, and sorry, Hab, who introduced the permaculture. I think this is a great way to pick up from my side and show some of our experience with permaculture. I hope the presentation, you can see it. Sorry, I can't hear you, Sarah.
Yeah, we can see it, but if there's any way you could put it in a presentation mode.
Yeah. I'll put it right now in display mode. Can you see it clearly? All good?
Yes, now we're good. Thank
All
you.
right. So this is the first time I try out this presentation. I did one for this meeting. I haven't done one in a while, so I decided to do it fresh. But my name is Khalid. I'm from Jalash. I've been working in the NGO sector for around 10 years, and I've had since 2014 an interest in permaculture, and I've gained some experience in permaculture, and I'm here to talk a little bit about my organization, the organization I represent, and about the work, the permaculture work that we've been doing. So thank you for this opportunity. So I'm co-founder of an organization called Sama Gaza, which started off in 2014 and then was officially registered in 2016. We're a non-profit or company registered in the Ministry of Industry and Trade, but we prefer to identify as a kind of a grassroots organization that's within the community, embedded within the community. To make it short, we work on 2 broader kind of programs. to do with youth and education programming. So we have supporting for extracurricular education from nursery to grade 10 and summer camps, vocational skills, capacity building, soft skills training, and the University Scholarships Fund. And then we do humanitarian assistance, just like any other grassroots community organization in Jordan, where we do distribution of food packages, a shelter program, clothing campaigns, tuition fees, and humanitarian support as needed in Ramadan and Eid and on other kind of settings, just like any other community organization. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the context that we're from. This is to do with camp settings, refugee camp settings, prolonged crisis since 1967. Jarash camp is a camp in Jordan that was established in 1967 for refugees from Gaza and from around Gaza who fled twice. So they are secondary refugees, once in 1948 and the second time in 1967. This picture, as you can see, is from the first pictures from the camp, where it was, in the beginning, it was all tent-based for around 11,000 inhabitants. And as you can see, they moved from the tent to the prefab. This is actually asbestos material that was established there back in 1967. So you can imagine the effects of the asbestos. It was there for a long period of time, actually. This is what the camp looks like now. This is from my camera, 2021. I try to see if it's from the same angle to show the comparison. But the camp, ANERA has pinpointed around 45,000 people live in this camp in less than 1 kilometer square. So you can imagine how densely populated it is. Again, one of the specific complex situations of these refugees is that they are considered stateless because since 1967 they've been in Jordan. They have not been nationalized in Jordan, and they have been in a refugee status since. And UNRWA is managing this camp along with the Jordanian Authority. This is one of the first projects that we started. We started off supporting other organizations in the camp. And then we moved on slowly and decided that we needed a place of our own. Most of our work is really focused on volunteers and community-based volunteers from the camp and from outside camp. And our role as an organization is really to link all the community together, the Palestinian community from outside and inside, and even the international community together to support the situation for the Palestinian community in the camp. So in 2017, we decided that we needed a place of our own. This is our community center. This is what it looked like before in 2017 when we first took it, and this is what it looks like now. It was very important for us to have an open garden space in the center and to work on permaculture and gardening and farming and extracurricular courses. You know, this is what the center looks like, community center looks like kind of on a daily basis. There's a square, there's a garden space, there's classrooms, and if you can look on the top right corner, that is Ilham Abadi. She's a very influential person in Jordan, part of a community-based project in Salt and Al Bayuda farm. She's considered an expert here in Jordan. Also, Rabia Zregat on the right corner below, part of Baraka wheat, and he grows grains on lands that are not used, privately owned lands with their owners to benefit and to have a local way of food production. So again, we are linking people from all over and specialists from all over to come and visit camp and to engage with the community and, you know, to have something to offer. We also established another vocational training center in 2017. This is how it looked like before and after. This is the water storage for that center. It's a small space in the middle of the camp in a very highly densely populated area. We purchased the right to use the land and maintained it and created a space where people can learn and build their capacities there. There's a sewing space, a beauty salon, a rooftop garden, a food production area, and a electronics repair area. These are some pictures from that space. This is the electronics repair space there, and the sewing space also. This is our rooftop garden in that vocational center. This is the platform for a lot of initiatives and activities that we went on to do after establishing the space and bringing people together. This is how it looks like on the second floor inside, in the middle of the camp. It's a green space. It's a beautiful place to be, a very special place to be with the greenery. Since 2019, we met with a group called Greening the Camps, who were a bunch of Belgian volunteers who came and supported us with some activities. We built rooftop gardens and gardens in 30 residents in the camp. And we established 3 community spaces, green community spaces. We did a gardening workshop for around 40 people, 40 women and 30 men. And we also did a compost making workshop and the carpentry workshop that were all based around permaculture, based around urban permaculture, permaculture in the camps, rooftop gardening, and these kind of principles from permaculture and techniques. So, we do a lot of composting. I would say maybe we introduced vermicompost in this setting, and the use of vermicompost. We also did the Berkeley's method of compost, trying to improve the soil where the soil is possible, or trying to at least be able to plant in containers or wherever we could. We used the wicking beds as a tool for us in all of our work, where you would have the gravel to store the water, and they have mentioned about this also, and upcycling and container farming in our rooftop gardens. This is some pictures from the compost workshop that we had. It was the Berkeley's method mostly, and other methods, of course, like Permi and the slower methods also. The lady on the right corner is Miss Abla, who actually is a key that introduced us to greening the desert, and Darren, and she has a big role in our work also, and learning from her really. This is again one of our roles. This is how the compost workshop would look on a normal day, where everybody would get together and start making their compost piles and learning about the different processes of making compost. This is in the refugee camp around us also. We have had, let's say, beginner sessions to permaculture for the ladies and for the children. We've had techniques, old cultural techniques and traditional techniques that are being displayed again, and worked on together with the community. Like the left corner is the henna making, natural henna making from burning of the olive oil and the coal. And this was the one in the center is from a mini kind of beginner PDC that we had. Also the one with the child with the vermic. And on the right is the carpentry workshop, where we made our wicking beds and made other materials to be used in the rooftop gardens. I'm not sure if you can hear this, but this is a chant from the old Palestinian farmer songs. And they mention maybe 5 types of flowers in this chant. So we would go also to farmers' gardens, farmers' markets, and display our produce, try to sell it, display other produce from homemade businesses in the camp also. So at the beginning, I was asked to talk about permaculture in the camps, and also when I met with Sarah later on in a preparatory meeting, she mentioned about water, and this is one of the most important things, of course, in camp. And I felt that we're not doing enough for water, and I'll share a little bit why also. This picture is from, I think, 2013 of the water system, the sanitation system that was in camp. You can still see this remaining system in camp today. The issue also is that the camp has expanded a lot from the area that it was originally based on, and this created a kind of a gray area where this is not managed by UNRWA. This area is not managed by UNRWA and does not receive the services and support of UNRWA. So they have less development, they have less support there. Just to give you an idea about the water situation, Jerash camp was one of the last refugee camps in Jordan without an underground sewage system. And gray water and other kinds of wastewater was flowing through open channels in the roads. And this created a lot of disease and contamination of drinking water and direct contact with the wastewater, affecting children in particular. And, the children couldn't play outside without risking infection. So 3 times as many children in Jerash camp were suffering from water-related diseases than in any other refugee camp in Jordan. Drinking water was available only sporadically in the camp, and it still is today. To give you an idea, every 4 weeks, if you're lucky, you will get water from the main system, from the public system, fresh water. And some sites you see that it's written drinking water, but I don't know how we can call this drinking water really. It is fresh water used. It's difficult to use it for drinking water. If you're lucky, and every 4 weeks you will get public water. The rest for drinking mostly is paid for, unless they have the residents need to use the fresh water for drinking. It's not clean water at all. And even for the private use, the selling of water, it's distributed in a very unhygiene way, and in vans and in trucks, and swapping containers and things like that. So the undersized water network was not upgraded since 1968, and the Swiss Agency for Development, along with the Department of Palestinian Affairs, in 2012 began working on an actual underground sewage network. So that's not so long ago, and water supply for Jerash camp. And if you can see, these are the 2 projects, the main projects for sanitation and water system in the camp by the Swiss government, SDC, for 7 million from 2013 to 2016. And then from 2019, there was a second phase of around 270,000 dinars, funded by the SDC and implemented by Department of Palestinian Affairs. Again, this is for 50,000 people living in less than 1 kilometer square. Water is one of the most important, most difficult issues in the camp. I thought to have an ask from this meeting, and I wanted to encourage experts, governments, INGOs, and NGOs to collaborate directly with community-based organizations like Sama Gaza that have access to the communities, and to support us to try and strengthen the level of assessments that's coming out from these communities, to expand training, capacity building, and awareness on water harvesting, grey water reuse, and water waste prevention, and to establish simple systems like grey water systems or water collection, off-road collecting of water, small systems to collect and to hold water, to be able to use it in a better way, even raising awareness through information for children. And I really think Darren's guide would be very helpful to start to implement as one of the extracurricular courses in our community center, to side with, for example, maths and sciences classes, to have a permaculture class as well. And that's what we would like to work on in the future, inshallah. And thank you much for this opportunity again.
Thank you so much, Halim, for providing an overview of your work with Sama Gaza, and the challenges that come about from, as you said, you have 50,000 people living in less than 1 kilometer squared. So how you implement gardening solutions and address the water challenges there, in the context of a tremendous challenge. I know that we have Q&As coming in, but we're going to now turn to Rasan Najar. Rasan, are you able to share your screen? I think, or Khaled has to stop sharing his, and then you're able to share yours.
شكرا لكم انكم دعيتيني لهذا الحدث. عن جد انا بقدر هذا الاشي. يعني الجميع حكى عن الزراعة المستدامة، لكن انا بدي احكي عن الصمود المستدام، خاصة احنا اللي بنعاني منه في الوقت الحالي من اعتداءات مستمرة، من حرق، من تدمير للمحاصيل، تدمير للأراضي. طبعا انا غسان نجار من تعاونية أرض وزرع. هاي التعاونية اللي تأسست في 2020 من عدد من الشباب والشابات في قرية صغيرة اسمها بورين في منطقة نابلس أو مدينة نابلس. إحنا في بداية تأسيسنا حاولنا قدر الإمكان إنه نعزز وجودنا أو ننمي اقتصادنا الوطني خاصة إنه الوضع السياسي والوضع الأمني كان صعب، إنه بعد ما تخلص من الجامعة أو تتخرج من الجامعة إنك تلاقي أي وظيفة. فإحنا التجأنا للأرض. فكانت يعني أفكارنا قدر الإمكان تكون حاضنة شعبية لموضوع العودة إلى الأرض، أو برنامج أطلقنا عليه العودة للأرض. لكن للأسف في بداية شغلنا ووجودنا في الأرض إحنا تعرضنا للعديد من المضايقات، وتم اعتقالي واستشهد أحد زملائي في الأرض، وهي كانت هي نقطة التحول في موضوع الجمعية عندنا. حتى أطلقنا على موضوع الزراعة، من الزراعة المستدامة إلى الصمود المستدام، لأنه وجودنا في الأرض أصبح هو العنوان الرئيسي، عدا عن موضوع الزراعة والأعمال اللي إحنا بنقوم فيها داخل القرية أو داخل المجتمع المحلي بشكل عام. يعني إحنا مختصين في الزراعة البيئية، في محاولة قدر الإمكان لتخفيف العبء والأضرار الناجم عن اعتداءات المستوطنين على المزارع الفلسطيني وعلينا بشكل خاص. يعني في الفترة الأخيرة عدا عن المستوطنين، والجيش كان يحاول حرق وتقطيع الأشجار. يعني احنا بنحكي عن 10 سنين بورين القرية اللي أنا عايش فيها فقدت أكثر من 17 ألف شجرة زيتون من خلال الحرق، من خلال تسميم أشجار الزيتون، من خلال البودرة بيضاء سامة للأرض وسامة للشجرة بشكل أساسي. المشكلة اللي احنا بنعانيها الرئيسية.
Sorry to interrupt, Hassan, but should I be flipping through some of the slides? Because I know the topics you're discussing now are in the slides, some of them, and I haven't been. Should I
You can like change the
flip
slide.
through?
Yeah. يعني من خلال عملنا في الموضوع الاجريكولوجي او الزراعه البيئيه، احنا قدرنا، يعني ما بدي اقول انه 100% قدرنا نعالج المشاكل الاساسيه اللي بنعاني منها في التربه من خلال تسميم التربه من قبل المستوطنين، لكن خلينا نحكي على موضوع 70% احنا قدرنا ان نعيد للتربه يعني نوع من عافيتها، انها قدرت قدر الامكان ان نزرع فيها والانتاج يكون افضل. لكن لحد الان، يعني لحد قبل اسبوع، آه، تم تسميم المياه اللي بنستعملها ل لري المزروعات عندنا للأسف الشديد، لأنه إحنا أصلا بنستعمل نبع مي طبيعي للمزارعين الفلسطينيين. خلال قبل أسبوع تقريبا المستوطنين قاموا بتسميمها من خلال المواد الكيماوية، فتفاجأنا إنه عشرات الآلاف من الخضروات تم إبادتها بشكل كامل. عندما كنا لما رحنا فحصنا التربة، لقينا التربة فيها نسبة تسمم ما يقارب 80%. وهذه كانت الصدمة. لما فحصنا المياه أيضا، لما من خلال وزارة الزراعة، قالوا لنا للأسف المي حتى للحيوانات ممنوع تستعملوها في الوقت الحالي لأنه تم تسميمها، وراح نحاول قدر الإمكان معالجتها. فإحنا على هذا الأساس أطلقنا حملة إنه الصمود المستدام وليس الصراع المستدام، لأن إحنا في فلسطين حاليا إحنا بنصارع على الأرض، وجودنا في الأرض، لأنه إحنا شبه يومي عندنا الاعتقالات والتهديد من قبل الاحتلال والمستوطنين. ما بدي احكي كثير عن الموضوع الاحتلال والمستوطنين، لكن على مستوى التعاونيه عندنا احنا قدرنا ننجز كثير امور. يعني احنا قدرنا نشتغل في اكثر من تقريبا 20 دنم موجودين في القريه، وهي المناطق هي المصنفه سي. للاسف فقدنا احد زملائنا في العمل من خلال اطلاق مستوطن النار عليه واستشهاد على في الارض. هاي كانت صدمه لنا، وكانت يعني صراحه البعض كان عنده تخوف من العودة للمكان اللي استشهد فيه زميلنا محمد. لكن اليوم احنا رجعنا لهذا المكان ورممناه واستعدنا شغله، واحنا حاليا كل الانتاج اللي من خلال هاي الارض اللي بتحوي على 6 دونمات، كل الانتاج اللي بنبيعه هو بنقدمه عن روح زميلنا محمد مجانا للعائلات المستورة وللفقراء. وعدا عن ذلك انه احنا حتى على مستوى المحلي معظم الإنتاج أو المبالغ المالية اللي بنجنيها من هذا الإنتاج 15% بروح للمجتمع المحلي كدعم للأطفال. يعني عندنا كثير أنشطة نفسية وعلاج نفسي للأطفال، خاصة اللي بتعرضوا لاعتداءات المستوطنين والجيش. وعندنا أيضا للمرأة الفلسطينية، عندنا أنشطة كثير بنكون فيها للمرأة وللأم الفلسطينية في هاي القرية. وعدا عن ذلك احنا بنحاول قدر الإمكان نطور في مشاريعنا. لدينا أفكار كثير، يعني احنا بننتج اللي بنحكي له السماد السائل الطبيعي، السماد سائل طبيعي 100% من خلال البيوغاز. لكن احنا اللي صنعنا البيوغاز من خلال امكانيات بسيطه، لانه صراحه ما عندنا الامكانيات ان نشتري نظام البيوغاز. فاحنا صنعنا نظام البيوغاز عندنا في الجمعيه لانتاج، او ما يطلق عليه الشاي السائل او الفولتلايزر الطبيعي. ف وبرضه احنا عندنا زي مختبر لتحليل وعلاج النبته. احنا النبته لما تموت عندنا ما بنكبها، احنا بنخضعها لتحليل كامل ونشوف سبب موت النبته، بنفحص التربه، بنحاول قدر الامكان ان نلاقي لها العلاج الطبيعي المناسب لها. وفي نفس الوقت احنا بنستخدم بعض الكائنات الحيه الايجابيه لقتل الكائنات الحيه السلبيه اللي بتضر الكائنات الحيه داخل البيوت البلاستيك او خارجها. زي عندنا حشره ام سليمان، ما بعرف انتم شو بتحكوا لها، حشره ام سليمان. هي ركن اساسي لعلاج النبته عندنا صراحه. وعدا عن ذلك احنا نكثر من زراعه البصل بجانب البندورة والخيار، عشان قدر الإمكان نعطي نيتروجين للنبتة، لأنه عندنا البصل بيعطي نيتروجين بنسبة كبيرة منيحة، وهذا بيعطينا يعني زيادة في الإنتاج وزيادة في نمو النبتة. بالعلم انه احنا مش دارسين زراعة، لكن الزراعة صارت عندنا هواية وحب بشكل اساسي. عندنا كثير حملات احنا بنكون فيها، يعني عندنا حملة قطف الزيتون، احنا بنستضيف العشرات من المتضامنين الدوليين. تمكنا من عمل مدرسة للزراعة البيئية للأطفال عندنا في المدرسة، وبنعطي دورات عن أساسيات الزراعة البيئية والعناية بالتربة بشكل أساسي. عندنا خبرات متبادلة مع بعض المهندسين الزراعيين الموجودين في إيطاليا وإسبانيا. هذا أعطانا دفعة إنه نطور شوي من مشاريعنا. بنحاول قدر الإمكان إنه نقدم لمشاريع لتطوير الدفايات عندنا أو لتطوير الزراعة عندنا، لكن للأسف لحد الآن إحنا مش قادرين، لأنه حسب ما بيحكوا إن إحنا موجودين في منطقة سي، وهاي إسرائيل بتمنع وجودهم أو إنهم يكونوا موجودين في الشغل فيها للأسف الشديد. إحنا حاليا بنشتغل على مشروع الفود سفرنتي، اللي هو السيادة على الغذاء مع نساء البلد. إحنا قدرنا إنه من خلال مشروع بسيط جدا إنه نساعد 25 امرأة في القرية، زي مزارع بيتية أو حدائق منزلية داخل منازلهم، حتى انهم يتمكنوا من الاستمرار في الحياه في ظل الوضع الصعب او الاغلاقات اللي دائما بتكون فيها قوات الاحتلال على القريه. وهذا ساعدهم حتى انه قدر الامكان يعتمدون على حالهم في موضوع الزراعه وفي موضوع العمل بشكل اساسي. يعني ال 25 امراه اليوم بنتجن اكثر من 10 طن من الخضروات، وهذا شيء صراحه بنفتخر فيه، لانه احنا اللي قمنا بالاشراف واحنا اللي قمنا بالتعليم واحنا اللي وفرنا لهن البذور البلديه الاصليه الخاليه من الكيماويات. واحنا على صدد ان نطور هذا المشروع ان شاء الله قريبا مع نساء اخوات وفي القرى المجاوره. يعني هاي نبذه صغيره عن شغلنا وعن حياتنا بشكل اساسي في الجمعيه وفي القريه اللي احنا عايشين فيها. وشكرا لكم.
Thank you so much, Rasan. Thank you for sharing the work that you're doing in an extremely complex environment, extremely complex and challenging. I'm gonna go, we have a couple of minutes for Q&A. Let's see, there's, okay, there's one question with respect to potential opportunities to collaborate and work in Syria. And I think that we can type an answer to that separately, because we are definitely looking for opportunities to collaborate on the Adaptation Fund project, particularly with regards to knowledge sharing across the region. And so we're envisioning certain workshops that may be coming up in the future, and we would love to have involvement from urban planners and public officials and individuals working in permaculture and water solutions in Syria for sure. There's a question here. I think this is for Rasan. How are you dealing with the restricted access to water imposed by Israeli authorities? Isn't this restriction impacting the crops? If we can make sure, Rasan, did you want to provide an answer on that? On how the restrictions imposed by Israeli authorities are impacting your access to water for farming?
يعني القيود اللي بيفرضها جيش الاحتلال معقدة جدا جدا. حتى قبل تقريبا 3 أسابيع احنا بنستعمل مياه النبع الأساسية في القرية، عندنا نبعتين وهي تقريبا كافية للمزارعين، وقمنا باستغلالهن للزراعة. لكن للأسف بعد انتهاء من المشروع اللي قمنا به احنا الجمعية اللي قمنا فيه داخل الجمعية لتوصيل المياه لجميع المزارعين، قامت جرافات الاحتلال بقطع وتخريب كافة خطوط المياه بحجة أن الخطوط متواجدة في مناطق سي. بنحاول قدر الإمكان توفير المياه من خلال التراكتورات الزراعية ووصولها إلى المزارعين. زي ما بتعرفوا يعني إحنا المياه حنا من خلال شركة إسرائيلية تطلق عليها مكروت للأسف. وهي يعني تكلفتها غالية جدا على المواطن الفلسطيني. احنا بنحكي 6 شيكل، يعني ما يقارب $1.50 أو $2 للكوب الواحد، وهذا تكاليف عالية. عندنا مشكلة حقيقية في موضوع المياه، واحنا يعني بنحاول قدر الإمكان من خلال أفكار بسيطة، إن من خلال البرك الزراعية البسيطة واستغلال مياه الأمطار ومياه النبع إن نستمر في موضوع الزراعة. أنا حكيت لكم موضوع الزراعة أصبح عندنا، يعني ما بدي احكي ثانوي بشكل اساسي، لكن عندنا احنا موضوع الصمود في الارض اصبح اهم من الزراعه، لان وجودنا في الارض صار اكثر اهميه في موضوع اني احط شتله واترك الارض. لا، انا وجودي اني اكون متواصل او موجود في الارض، حتى لو شربت بس كاسه قهوه وطلعت، احنا بنعتبره هذا انجاز في الوقت الحالي، خاصه في ظل الاعتداءات المستمره. وموضوع المياه كثير كثير معقد صدقا، واحنا بنحاول قدر الامكان إن نلاقي حلول. بنحاول نتواصل مع مؤسسات، بنحاول نتواصل حتى مع الصليب الأحمر لدعم موضوع شبكة مي أو شبكة مياه للمزارعين. لكن للأسف لحد الآن إحنا ما أجانا أي رد من أي مؤسسة نحاول على الأقل إصلاح ما قام بتخريبه الاحتلال.
Thank you so much. I know our interpreters had a little bit of a hard time picking up on you because of the internet connection, but you guys did a great job. At least from what I could tell, our interpreters were doing a great job. Let's see if we have time for one more question. I wanted to get back to this question from Ahmed Farid, who, and I think probably a lot of you will have a response, or a lot of our panelists will have a response to this. How can we address the issue of profit, which is often the main driving force behind most people's involvement in agriculture or any other field of investment? So I guess it's the overall thinking beyond agriculture as an industry to the permaculture principles of serving the earth, of serving people, of not hoarding excess. Khaled, you have your hand up. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to share my experience with this. I think it's a really, really important question. And when you start to practice permaculture in the setting, in the camp setting, for example, you're always thinking about income for the residents because they really need it to be able to manage their lives. And I really found the difficulty and challenge with this part. And sometimes I feel that this is, what was an obstacle for me in my practice as a project manager, for example, we could say, implementing these projects in camp. And I found that it's a lot easier to save money than to actually make money. And the benefits of the nutrition value and all of these other things are what's the bigger benefit. But making money is the difficult part. Creating profit, as the question was, it was the difficult part from my side, because it's quite limited on how much the people can produce, and the market also, it requires a different kind of supplier for them. And there's not enough platforms that are able to break down to smaller kind of suppliers, like household suppliers, for example, for herbs or for things like that. And also, I also found a bit of difficulty for the manufacturing, the continuation of the supply chain for these products. For example, if you wanted rosemary oil, okay, you will plant rosemary for 30 houses, and then you wanted to extract the oil to be able to start to sell something, for example. So these are the kind of the two challenges from my experience. It's not an answer to the question. It's more of a reflection on what I went through when I was doing this. Thank you very much, sir. I think you're on mute.
There we go. Thank you so much, Khaled. We have to close in just 2 minutes. So I want to thank everyone for attending, for our panelists for taking the time to join us. I see that we still, okay. I'm sorry, we're not going to have time to get to all of the questions in the Q&A, but what we are going to do afterwards is send a follow-up to everyone who registered to attend. This will include links to the presentations. It will include the contact information of our panelists here today. So if you have follow-up questions, you can reach out to them directly. I know that they're all very passionate about the work that they do, and they'll be happy to follow up with you and provide answers. And I'd like to thank UN-Habitat as our collaborators on the project, the Adaptation Fund, and our interpreters and our communications consultants, everyone who's involved. Thank you so much, everyone. Hossein, I'll turn it over to you to close for us. Thanks.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you very much. And thank you all for being with us today. Thank you for the speakers who enlightened us today with their experiences in permaculture and sustainable agriculture in general. Special thanks for Ghassan for being with us today from Palestine, and keep it up, my friend, and we support you. Thanks, and I conclude by that. Thank you all for being with us.
Thank you. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you, everyone. A pleasure and blessings.
Thank you.
Thanks.